Good morning, guys. I'm Chris, and welcome back to another episode of Rift Amps. So we're trying something a bit different this week. Friend of the channel, Noisy Josh, is here. I'll put his socials down below. He's dropped in for me because he spent some more money on some really cool vintage stuff. So this, first of all, we'll start with this one. This is your 6G6C
Yep.
Blonde Bassman.
Yep, 1964.
This is 1964. We've had this one in before. What did I do to it last time?
I think last time you just got it up and running. It had been kind of abandoned for a while. It was just a bit noisy, a bit unhappy.
Yeah.
It had a non-original light.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
the
it had a
ring left
replacement dual light, didn't it? And did I recap this?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but yeah.
Cool. All right. We spin it around at the back. It's is this a 64 or is it early 65?
It's
or is it late 63?
March 64, I think.
Yeah, okay. Bit of a dent there, but it's pretty cool, isn't it? And you're running this through a 2x15?
2x12. It's a Tremolux cab.
Yeah.
From 64 as well, so it looks the same.
Okay.
But it's been hacked out for 12s instead of the 10s it would have had.
Hacked out.
Yeah.
Technical
it's not
term.
the cleanest job inside.
Okay, cool. That's nice though, isn't it? So this is in. You brought this in for just a check up and a check over.
Yeah, it's been pretty
service.
good. It just gets every now and then I get the odd crackle or kind of grumpy noise.
Mm-hmm.
There was a bit of a screech when I plugged in to the input one on the normal channel the other day.
Yeah.
So just a bit of a health check, really.
Okay. Cool. Right. So we can stick that on the bench and check the output first. Listen for some noises. So we'll do that in a second. But you've got this very, very clean original Fender reverb unit. Is this the original Tolex? Do you know?
It is, yeah. It's in terrible condition, isn't it?
It's filthy. Chuck it in the bin. So where's this come from?
So that was a find on Reverb one day. It came up cheap.
Okay.
I bought it immediately because I've been looking for a matching one for the Bassman. It seems pretty original altogether. Yep. Still got the original lead on it, I think, isn't it?
It looks like, yeah.
So this one I'm a bit skeptical about how safe it is.
Okay, so we need to make it safe.
It's in, really, because I don't think it's ever been.
Have you turned it on and used it?
Gently, carefully, and it's all sounding fine, acting fine, but just want to make sure it's up to snuff, really. To use in anger.
And we don't know any more history than that.
No.
So we don't know if it's been worked on before. We don't know the condition inside. Have you opened it up?
I haven't, no.
Okay. It should be a 6K6 in these, I think. So rather than the 6V6, which they used on the reissues, this has got a 6K6, which is originally used in old car radios. Oh. Yeah, when they were valve, or tube, as they call them. That's an RCA look. That's pretty rare. But that is, I mean, all these are. The best way to think of these is it's a guitar amplifier, but rather than driving a speaker, it's driving a reverb tank.
Got you.
But you treat it, as far as I'm concerned, as a guitar amplifier, which is partly why they're so expensive to build. Because, you know, you need all the other bits that a guitar amplifier needs. But the only thing you haven't got is a speaker. So shall I buzz this back off?
Yep.
And we have a look inside. So did you import this from the States, or was it in Europe?
No, it was from the States.
No shipping issues?
No.
So some of the viewers might remember that, was it a silver plate Princeton?
No, it was black. It was, 66.
The one you got from South Africa?
Yeah.
The one that arrived in, it was just a cardboard box.
It was a cardboard box the size of the amp, no padding.
Yeah, and that took a bit of a knock, didn't it? So, excellent. Right, let me get a pointer and we'll have a look through and see what we can find. I've lost my fancy chopstick. Okay, so we've got what they've done is, because you can see the reverb tank's mounted to the front wall of the cabinet, They've moved the mains transformer inside the chassis. So that's what this is here. And that's a 125P24A. So normally they'd be mounted on the back, but they've just spun it around the other way.
Like on an amp sort of thing.
Yeah.
On a regular Fender amp.
Yeah. But the rest of the layout, as I said, you think guitar amplifier, you've got your centralised board here with all your components on, controls on one side, valves or tubes on the other. Again, it's pretty standard for a Fender style layout. Initial inspection, I can't see that many components have been changed, if any at all. It all looks to be pretty mint. I'll just pull one of the... Yeah, so that's an RCA 7025. And that one is a General Electronics 1287. So that would be the reverb. I think that's the reverb driver in this one. If I just spin that around. This is all untouched. Nobody's been in here. Which tells us one of two things. It could be one of two reasons. One, the amp's never gone wrong and it hasn't need servicing. Or it went wrong and someone just put it to one side. But you told me you've played it and it works.
Yes.
Which so I would argue it's probably all good. Right. So you say you think it's a what? A 1964?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so this transform is a Schumacher 606, 43rd week of 1964. So that kind of adds up what you think it should be. Yeah. I'm not sure when they went to the black covering. We'll have to look that up. So you just want this checking out, make sure it's safe?
Yep, so I can kind of use it in anger, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure it doesn't explode on me.
So when you play tested it, was there any issues with it?
None at all, no.
So no feedback, no squealing as you turn controls up, things like that?
No, it sounded brilliant.
Okay. And we're going to keep it at 120 volt?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be a shame to mess around with it too much.
Yep.
Given the fact that everything else is all straight on it.
I don't think this transformer's got a 240 volt tap. No, it doesn't. So yes, we either change that transformer out or you use an external one.
I'm happy to leave it as is, at least for now. I think it would be a bit of a shame to start hacking it up a bit too much.
The only thing I can't see at the moment is there's the doghouse on the back. So should we pull the chassis and have a look at the caps under the doghouse?
Cool, sounds good.
So now I've got the chassis removed, we can see the reverb tank in how it's mounted. It's spring mounted and it's on these standoffs. So it's actually kind of floating. You see that? But what you've got here is this mechanism here, and if you unlock it, there you go, that releases the tank. Yeah? So that's how it should be as you normally play it. And then for transport, you can lock it away.
Is that to stop it rattling around too much?
Yeah, and putting any excess strain on things. If it gets dropped or something, you don't want it clanging about, and then you do that. It's a really cool design. You can see there's an L-shaped cutout here that just allows that to... Very cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't lose that. You won't get a replacement. Right, anyway, here's the chassis. So we'll spin her over. So we've got the 125 C3A, which I think is the choke, isn't it? Yeah. So you've got a tiny, tiny little choke here, and this is your output transformer, 125 A12A. And they're both dated. This one's dated 21st week of 1964, and this one is the 47th week of 1964. So this is a very late 64 amp. Very late. You know, maybe a Christmas amp.
Yeah.
What was the one inside? 43rd week, yeah. So it might even be a January 65.
Which would be very late for a blonde, wouldn't it?
The chassis, very late, yeah. Chassis is stamped R06982, so we can look that up and see if there's any info on those. Can I see what the pots are? Stamped 21st week of 1964. So yeah, it's probably a late 64. Right, should we take this off? I doubt this has ever been off, judging by the rest of it. So before all the haters, I've got this on the lowest clutch setting, so I'm not going to damage any screws. So there is a risk. You see, on the underside of this cap, there's the foam, the thick foam tape that they put. Sometimes it sticks to the caps.
Right.
And if you're not careful as you peel this off, it sometimes takes a cap with it. But no, we're good. There we go. See, that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes that sticks to the body of the cap, and when you lift it off,
I see.
they get yanked. Right, so look at that. That is practically brand new. Look at the condition of that Foreman board. Solder joints look original, and we've just got the starting of some bulging going on at the vents. So I would argue it would be a good idea that these caps are swapped out if you intend to play this thing and look after it. Yeah, if you want to keep it as a museum piece and not play it.
No, I want to be able to use it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the caps are 39th week of 1964. I'll show you. 64, 39th week 1964, and they're all the same. So they've come out the same parts bin, the same bag as well. This is really cool. And look at this Alan Bradley carbon comp. That's I mean, that's had no stress on it whatsoever. That looks. Have I got one the same colour? My newer one looks older. This thing's immaculate.
It's a bit of a time capsule, isn't it?
Can I ask what you paid?
Not enough for what it is, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I did well, put it that way.
Yeah, you really have. Okay. So if your plan is to play the amp, play the unit and keep it going, those three electrolytics need doing. Probably this one here as well, and then we can measure the rest. This yellow Astron here, which is from the Tweed era. In Tweed amps, they're usually very leaky electrically.
Right.
But these blue moulded ones tend to be pretty indestructible. So I would be surprised if any of these need replacing, but this yellow Astron, I would be surprised if it doesn't.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And
Is that why they changed over from the yellow to the blue ones?
It's just suppliers.
Oh, okay.
They went from the early reds and the greens to the yellows. Then they went to the blues, and then in the silver plate era we had those brown turds, as we call them. Yeah. It's just the way they went. But so apart from that, I mean, most of these solder joints are completely untouched. But look, can you zoom? I've just seen it. Can you zoom in on that joint there?
Yep.
It's gone cold around the lead.
Oh yeah.
So I bet if I get a pair of pliers, that'll pull straight out.
Okay.
Do you want more light?
I think it's okay. I just need to get around the blue leads.
We're rolling, yeah?
Yeah.
So if I just bring that insulation back, you can see around the lead itself, if you're close enough.
Yeah.
It's not
pulling
bonded to the lead. If I wiggle that, yeah. So there's a high chance that either that's left the factory like that and it's just worked, or over time that's deteriorated. I would suspect that was just. I mean, this one next door also. not very well soldered. So this is why we get things checked. Yeah, so we can go through and make sure that there's nothing. In fact, all of those look pretty poor. Which, well, I mean, I would argue then that that's an age-related thing rather than poor workmanship.
Right.
But yeah, but this is why these things need changing, and this is what annoys me about people who say don't touch solder joints in old amps because they want to keep them virgin. Well, yeah, because they could be knackered. They need salt.
Yeah.
So that's cool, though. I mean, wow, look at that. I can't quite remember, but because of ground loops and noise with these when using with other equipment, whether it's best to do a 3-prong conversion or not, especially if you're using a step-down transformer.
Right.
So I'll have to look into that as to whether I mean, this isn't cracked, so I would argue that it doesn't need replacing if you're using a step-down. On the reissues, they have a separate circuit that lifts the audio ground above the rest of it, so you don't get any ground loops.
Right.
But on these, I'll have to do some research and double check because I don't get many of these through as to whether we need to do a 3-prong conversion or not. But as long as it's safe for you to use, we'll go down that route.
Okay, great.
I think it's the best. But that's cool, man. Thanks for that. It looks like it came out of the factory. It really does. You never get them this clean. A tiny bit of tarnishing, but that's just, age, isn't it? That's not.
We'll forgive it for that.
Yeah, but I've never seen a filter board that clean. That looks brand new. Very cool. So we can't do any sound samples at the moment because we need to make the thing safe and good and all the things like that. But we will do before you have this back. I'll make sure we do some sound samples.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Cool. Mega amp. Reverb unit, effects unit. What do you call it? It is an effects unit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hang on. When did the Reverb 6G16 come out? Because that was the
63.
first Fender with onboard reverb. So this was a solution because all the amps previously either didn't have reverb. No, sorry. The only onboard effect was tremolo or vibrato, as Fender called it. So when people wanted reverb, this is what they came up with. And then for the Reverb, that was the first one with it on board. And then these kind of died out because by the time you get to the black plate era, everything's got reverb. Yeah. So they weren't made for too long. We'll look it up, but I think they were 63 to late 64, early 65, and then that was it. I think. It's cool though, isn't it? Right, brilliant. I do. Right, so this is the second time I've filmed this now. I didn't press record the first time round, so I'm going to have to do this all again. Thankfully, I know what I'm talking about now, so or at least I know how to present this in a way that most of you should understand. Okay, so we're still working on the Fender 57 5E3 Tweed Deluxe, the one with the faulty output transformer. Okay, first test I did was in the amplifier. I signal traced all the way through and found that the signal entering the output valves was good, but what was coming out the other side, or what was appearing on the other side, I should say, was ugly and distorted and low output. So that's where we were. I subbed in one of my replacement transformers. The amplifier came back to life and was running great. Okay, so we've confirmed that that transformer is faulty, but I want to do a secondary test on that just to confirm, to see if we can find out why it failed. So this is a drawing of the primary side of the transformer. And what we've got is our winding here with our center tap in the middle, and the winding carries on this way. Now, if the way it works is high voltage is applied to the centre tap and then splits off one side to 16v6, the anode or the plate, and the other side goes this way. And this is a brown wire, this is a blue wire. Okay, and the centre tap is usually red. Now, if we measure across that winding on a 5E3 output transformer, we're usually looking around 300 ohms. 300 ohms. We usually use the letter R instead of the ohm symbol. Okay, 300 ohms is usually about right for the total winding, the DC resistance. Now, when transformers are wound, they actually start at the bottom, and say here's the bobbin, and we're going to wind our wire around a certain number of turns, and that will be set to whatever it is. Okay, just like a pickup, you're going to wind the amount of turns. Obviously, the more you wind, it takes more wire to do one full turn. Okay, so once we've got enough, the turns we want up to this point, we'll add our centre tap wire, and then we keep winding on top again. Now, obviously, as it builds up, it's going to need more and more wire to complete each turn, which means one side is going to have a higher DC resistance than the other, and that's expected. Now, it's 300 ohms roughly across both windings, and the split is usually, it's not 150, 150, it will usually be 130, 170, 125, 175, it depends, but you're not looking at a equal split. What's important is the number of turns each side is equal. Okay, so when we measure this transformer, we measure the total resistance across it, DC resistance, and then we measure each half and see what we get. And that's what I've done. Now, first one that I did was my replacement rift transformer to get a known good reference point. And the total resistance across both windings is 320 ohms, roughly. Okay, it doesn't have to be super accurate, it's just to get you in a ballpark figure. And again, that's close enough to where I would expect it to be. And our split each side, one side is 181 and the other is 136. Now, some of you are going, well, those two numbers don't add up to 320. Well, no, they don't, but it's only a rough split. Okay, so don't focus on that too much. Now we're going to look at the mercury magnetics transformer. And on one side, I'll zoom you in, from our brown to the centre tap, 158 ohms, and from our blue wire, the other side of the winding to centre tap, 184 ohms. Okay, so this one is obviously wound in the other direction. So this side was wound first, then this side on top. That's why this side's got a higher DC resistance, because there's more wire to get the same number of turns. Okay, so let's call it 160 and 180. What does that give us? That gives us about 340, something along those lines. And what have we got? 113.6 ohms. Hey, what? How does that work? Now, it's quite simple. We have a short somewhere between the brown and the blue. Across the total winding, there is a short somewhere, and the transformer has shorted. The coil has failed and is shorting somewhere. We measure each side to the centre tap to a different reference point. We still get the numbers we were expecting, but now when we measure across the winding, we get a short, and that is the cause of our problem. So that's why this transformer has failed. Now, it is a mercury magnetics transformer. The power transformer is also mercury magnetics. I think this means it's dated July 2007, and I think the amp is a 2007. So, what are these now? 17 years old? Cool, all right, whatever. But we have a short across the winding, and that's why that transformer has failed. So I've confirmed this transformer is faulty by subbing in my replacement, and then I've also tested it, bench tested it, and discovered the reason why. So I'm now 100% confident that we need to replace the output transformer. Right, okay, hopefully that will make sense and I haven't overcomplicated it. I've kept it simple, easy to understand. We now know how transformer windings work. There's one winding on top of the other, and therefore our DC resistances will be different even though the number of turns is the same. We can see from our readings, just using an ohm meter, that there is a short internally in this unit. Okay, so let's get the new one in, wired up and fired up. Up and running. It's been running for about an hour now. I've done all my voltage checks. I'm allowed to use a voltmeter now. That's to confirm the repair. Everything's good. We've got 83 watts of consumption at the wall. That's the output sine wave. 10.4 volts into 8 ohms gives us just over 13 watts. So bang on, exactly where we should be. This thing's running great. Give it a couple more hours burning in, and it can go back in the cabinet, and the customer can have it back. But that is a relatively simple repair, to be honest. It's a shame the transformer died. Here she is, the dead unit. Customer can have that back if he wants. Keep it with the amp, but I think sometimes things fail. There's nothing, I don't think, or I found no evidence of any reason why anything inside the amplifier caused that transformer to fail. Nothing's running too hot, nothing's shorted, everything else is good. There's no high frequency oscillations, parasitic or anything like that. So this amplifier is running great. It's just unfortunate that, you know, if it is 17 years old, it just failed. So we'll call that one done, and we will move on to the next one. I realised I didn't give you the walk around on the blonde Bassman, so I just got it on the chassis stand here. Just give you a quick overview. So power transformer, as we all know now how to read these things. 606 is Schumacher, and that's the third week 03 of 1964. 125 P7DX. Choke, Schumacher 606, 9th week of 1964, a 125 C1A. The output transformer, can we get in there? 7th week of 1964, 125 A13A. No reverb on the Bassman, of course. 4 preamp valves, 2 output valves. Now the 6G6 model had a rectifier valve, and they kept using the same chassis for the 6G6B and the 6G6C, which this model is. Same chassis, but they just blanked off that rectifier valve there. So that's what that is. This one, of course, is still in great condition, just nowhere near the mintness, the cleanliness, I can't talk, of the reverb unit that we've already looked at. Right, I'm just going to spin this over and I'll show you inside. So here we go, inside the blonde Bassman. So this is one that I've looked after before, and I've done some tasteful repairs, you know, recap of the small electrolytics. I did have to replace this cap. It's quite a large value, so it's the only one I had to hand. But I have looked after this. It's actually in great condition. It's really nice. The eagle-eyed view will notice that this is in fact an export model. So this one has got the export primary on the power transformer with all the different voltage taps that it could need. 117, 200, 210, 220, 230, 240. And you select which one you want with this, forgotten what they're called now. Not a banana plug. Going blank. Anyway, so you plug it in to exactly the voltage that you need. Obviously in the UK we want 240, and that's where that lives. So that's how you would select the voltage. for this model. How cool is that? On the later amps, they went to the red knob on the back, the rotary knob, but they put it internally on this, so probably not designed to be set by the end user. So I would assume that the retailer, the dealer, would, you know, obviously set these as required. But yeah, that's inside the 6G6C. We'll just stick it on the test bench and measure its output. Right, up and running. It's been going for about 10-15 minutes now, so it's nice and warm, nice and hot. Everything's running fine. That's our output sine wave. We're driving 4 ohms this time. Got the 4 ohm box on, because that's the output of this amplifier. And as you can see, that's our sine wave. I'll just get you stable. And just drive it more, increasing it until we see the point where it just starts to clip. You see how the top and the bottom is squared off. We'll bring it back down just till it's round. Just under 14 volts RMS. You see that there? We'll call it 14. On our 4 ohm chart, 14 volts RMS. You do 14 squared divided by your load, which is 4 ohms, gives us 49 watts. Bang on. Perfect. Lovely. So that's running great. I'm going to give that another half an hour or so. We'll start taking some measurements, check bias, you know, check all the voltages throughout, make sure they want to be, make sure none of the caps are leaking. We'll give it a quick service and a sort out. And then another bench test. But yeah, that's the blonde Bassman 6G6C export model, very rare, running sweet on the bench. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you very much for watching once again. The Bassman's on the bench. We're going to start working on the Reverb unit shortly. Please give this video a thumbs up, comments down below, join the channel if you want to, like these guys have. Now, Josh did tell me that he's made another sneaky little purchase, so when that arrives, he's going to bring it in to show us all what he's got. So I really did hope you've enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed doing the presenting thing a little bit more with a cameraman. I hope you enjoyed that too. The amps are really cool. Busy week, and I shall catch you all at the next one.